Welcome this week. I'm thrilled to announce my bestest friend Kelly has come on to join us. Welcome, Kelly.
Hi, thank you, Heather.
So wait, it looks like I'm okay. Um, Kelly, I brought you on today because you're sharing a very personal story, but as one of my best friends, and you showed me how to overcome obstacles or challenges in life as such a champion. But if you could give a little background on some news you got just, was it almost 2 years ago when you were 30 years old?
Yeah. So just before my 31st birthday and my son's first birthday, I was diagnosed with cervical cancer. And that was certainly a big shock because I had been very diligent in taking care of my health as a female my entire life and had always had clean results of pap smears. And so, that diagnosis really was just complete shock, right? Young, my son was not even a year old. I was still nursing him. And so we were now diagnosed. My husband and I were facing a cancer diagnosis and had to make decisions about how we treated that. And the decision that I made for myself at that time was to undergo a radical hysterectomy. And so further preventing my ability to, mother future children. And, at that point in time, we thought it was just your basic run of the mill cervical cancer. We didn't really, we thought I would have surgery and all would be fine and we would go about life. So 10 days, no, maybe a week after my surgery, I was recovering and got a call from my oncologist at the University of Kentucky that the results of the pathology were in. And I was diagnosed with a very, very, very rare and aggressive form of cervical cancer called large cell carcinoma of the cervix, sorry, or LCCC to be more generic. And so I was now to undergo pelvic radiation and chemo, 4 rounds of chemo. So that was incredibly, even a further setback that I kind of just thought, okay, recover from the hysterectomy and get by. And then I was now looking at 6 months of cancer treatment.
So, I mean, obviously that was a huge shock for you and I would imagine stressful and scary at the time, but how did you take it one day at a time? I mean, how did you go into it mentally to keep yourself strong? Because I know you did.
Yeah. I mean, I think my general nature, just by way that I am, is protecting and people pleasing. And I've always kind of been the stronger, mentally type, just naturally growing up and into adulthood. But, I had a family. I had a young family. I am the financial provider for my family. My husband is a stay-at-home dad to our son. And so I knew there wasn't a choice, right? I had to beat it. I had to dominate what was put before me because my husband and son needed me. And yeah, just one day at a time, one moment at a time. I mean, there would be, moments of feeling like I wanted to give up and moments where you're sick and you can't eat and you feel down on yourself. And really, I mean, it was just perspective and just trying to say, okay, I'm here, I'm alive, I'm breathing. So what if I feel like garbage, and just really trying to always bring myself back to reality of things could be worse, or yes, they're bad right now, but this, or, whatever may come up. So it was definitely sometimes minute by minute that I had to walk myself through.
How did you come from a state of gratitude?
I think that's hard. I feel like in general in my life, I've always been very appreciative and grateful for the things that I have, and just grateful of people. And hey, thanks for buying me dinner, or thanks for buying me lunch. I've always had that sense of gratitude, and I think a lot of that was just instilled into me by my upbringing and my parents. But when you literally stare death in the face and you don't know, right? They're wheeling you back for this incredibly complex surgery. You don't know if you're coming out on the other side. You become grateful to just open your eyes each morning. And you become grateful that you're having a bad hair day, because guess what? I'm not bald anymore and I have hair on my head. So I think a lot of it helps to just solidify you as a person. Not that I would ever want somebody to go through cancer by any means, but it just gave me the chance to say, wow, like I have so many great things in life and so much in front of me. And it made me quickly realize what was a priority to focus my efforts and energy on, and what was important to just let slide down my back.
So how did you change your priorities? What did you let go of?
Yeah. So, I let go of, I focused on the priority. And if I was told tomorrow that this cancer is terminal, right, you're done. It's morbid, and it sucks to have to say you think that way, but I did. I had to say, like, if it's bad and if the ship's going down, who do I want to be around? What do I want to say? Who do I want to spend time with? And obviously that pointed very quickly to my husband and my son, because why wouldn't you want to spend your days with them? But, friends, and feeling more comfortable saying to somebody like, hey, I love the heck out of you. I may not say it, and I may not say what I appreciate about you often enough, but I've had this reality to realize that if I don't make it to tomorrow, I want you to know, Heather Hakes, you're one of my best friends, and I think that's just, and getting fed up and fussed over, somebody is on your tail while you're driving, or, I work in customer service, and sometimes the customers aren't always nice. Sometimes they get frustrated, and just being able to say, okay, I understand. They might be having a bad day too. And just knowing that it's not worth internalizing and fussing over like I may have once, way back when.
So did you started having compassion for people and not sweating the small stuff?
Yeah, definitely. I have a lot of perspective in the way of what's the phrase? Like, you don't know until you've walked a mile in somebody's shoes what they're going through. Yeah. And, I worked full time during cancer treatment. I don't know how. I really don't. I worked. So the weeks that I wasn't sitting in the treatment room, at the hospital, I was working. Now, gratefully, I work from home, so I wasn't commuting into an office. But I recall there being one day where I was just sicker than a dog, just so sick. And this customer was on the phone, and they were frustrated about stuff, rightly so. They had a moment to be frustrated. And I just felt like, why is this person on my tail? I do not care. Like, I'm clinging to life right now. I feel like I need to go throw up. Like, I am so sick. I think my hair was falling out at that point. I was grabbing clumps of hair out of my head and just thinking, like, this is what you're worried about?
Yeah.
Come to find out, a couple months later, I actually got to meet that customer, and her husband had been diagnosed with cancer, like right around that time as well. And so she was really kind of bringing her stress to work. And so it was just this nice moment of the both of us realizing, like, you don't know what's on the other side of the fence, and you don't know why somebody's upset or frustrated or angry. And a lot of times it's usually not a direction at you and what you've done to them. It's them taking what they've internalized and projecting it out on you, instead of working through what that emotion or experience is going on, for them.
So I grew up with a quote in my bedroom, and it's not in this room, but I've seen it for years, and it really is true. It's be kind, for you don't know what somebody's, a battle they're facing right now. And so I think it's more or less like the more we can just be kind and pay it forward, and I mean, just
Yep.
have compassion and love for everybody.
Yeah. I had this really cool moment too, because I've taken that, right, that I just want to pay it forward. And so many people did so many wonderful things. I mean, if you want to know if people love you, a cancer diagnosis will tell that. I mean, I got so much mail and so many cards and meals, and people made blankets for me, and they sent socks, and I mean, just an outpouring of love. And I just sat there and thought, man, it took me I know people love me, but it took me like facing this disastrous thing in my life for somebody to reach out and send me a card and say, I love you, or to send a note. And I just, I feel like that's such an important thing to do in the world. So, recently I was in Chicago on a trip, and my husband and I, with our son, were sitting there at dinner, and I happened to look across the bar, and I saw a woman with like a do-rag on, like she was clearly bald. And I figured there was a large chance she was going through cancer. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to do something. I just want to say, pay that forward. So I brought the waitress over, and I said, whatever they're drinking over there, order around on me, and tell it, it's from me over here. And so I saw the round delivered, and they looked over, and I kind of pointed to my hair and pointed back like, hey, I get it. Because my hair was really, really short at that time. And she just started crying, and her son was crying, and her husband was crying, and they were just like, thank you. And I went over and I talked to them, and it was just a nice moment to give back. I had no idea who this lady was. Yeah. And just have that moment of just being kind and understanding like, hey, she feels good enough to be out with her family right now. That's amazing, because a lot of cancer patients don't ever feel well enough to get up and go. So it's been nice for me on the back end now, returning that love.
So now that you have come past that, can you see the silver lining? What is your biggest takeaway from it?
Yeah, I mean, I find silver linings every day and so many things. Just because the treatment is done and the surgery is done and I've recovered and I am no evidence of disease, as they call it, which is NED. I just got that 1-year designation mark at the end of January, which is exciting. I have many moments where I just am just grateful. I'm just grateful that, I do have side effects. I do still have issues with my body. It does weird things sometimes, or, my feet don't always work right because some of the nerves are damaged from chemo. But I'm like, wow, I just chased my son down the street. That's amazing. Like, he was running away from me and being a terrible toddler and running. But yes, my feet now work that I can run and I can keep up with him. And, just trying to find that each day is truly a gift, whether they're crappy or wonderful days or boring, monotonous groundhog days. I mean, each day that you are breathing is truly a gift, because the alternative of not, having that gift each day is not one I'm willing to accept, for many, many, many years.
Do you find yourself living in the present moment more? Because I know we both come from that very type A, want to think we have control of everything, want to plan everything out. But are you finding yourself like, let's just do today?
Yeah, I definitely do. I mean, for a living, I do a lot of, I work in project management. So I do a lot of scheduling. I do a lot of have to be at this meeting at this time. And so I find that on the weekends, I hate making plans. I hate I want to know, like, if at that moment we're just having fun at home playing dinosaurs and trains with our son, I just want to stay home and play dinosaurs and trains. I don't want to have to hurry and attend dinner because I told somebody 7 weeks ago that I would be at dinner. And it's really just trying to embrace what the moment is. It's easier said than done. I'm certainly not perfect at that. And I have my moments of really struggling with what does the future hold and what does it bring, but I don't have control over that. Yeah. I have no control over what how my cells choose to reproduce or not reproduce the rest of my life. I only have control of my mental state, my gratitude, and just seeking positivity each and every day. So that's kind of what I've tried to do.
That's huge. I want to end this with a couple of rapid fire questions for you. And I think one of the biggest ones, what is a piece of advice you have for listeners, whether it's somebody going through cancer or even just a life obstacle in general? Like, what is a piece of advice you really want them to take away?
It's going to be a two-parter. So the first is a shameless plug for all the lady listeners that you need to go to the damn doctor on a regular basis. So a lot of people think going to a gynecologist is incredibly awkward, but I'm here to tell you that going through a hysterectomy, radiation, and chemo is so much more awkward, and being bald, right? That's so much more awkward than going to the gynecologist on a regular basis. So that's my first bit of advice. And that's my shameless plug. My second piece of advice, I can't really take this one for myself, but my sister's dear best friend of many, many years, she fought a very rare brain cancer. And she fought for, I want to say like 7 or 8 years. And she was always smiling. I'm sure she had rough days. Now that I'm going through what I'm going through, I am sure she had her fair share of terrible days. I can only imagine the thoughts she had. But she truly always was smiling and lived life gracefully through cancer. And one of the things that she always said was, if you can't change your situation, you change your attitude. And that was huge for me, is that I have no control over my situation, so I choose to change my attitude around it.
Yeah, I'm writing that one down. What is a quote or motto that you live by?
Oh, man. A quote or motto. I mean, definitely the one I just said about, if you can't change your situation, change your attitude. The other one my mom always taught me when I was growing up was, kind of teaching I was kind of a flippity teenager, let's just be honest. And so she would often say, hey, Kelly, I don't care how beautiful you are on the outside, if you are ugly on the inside, you are just plain ugly. And so I've always tried to live with an inner beauty and an inner kindness. And then regardless of how my head looked when I was bald or when I was shriveling to just bones and skin, I at least hoped that my inner beauty shines through.
Yeah. And you've actually told me one that before, and I totally agree. Kelly, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your personal story.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you persevered, and obviously I love you to death.
I love you to death. Thanks for having me.